So today's Daf Lamed Beis. We're going to start from Lamed Aleph Lamed Daled and go just through the mimer of Basi Legani, a little bit shorter today. We'll do the mimer Basi Legani Achaisikala. Basi Legani Achaisikala, come to my garden. My sister, my Kala, my bride, or I've come to my garden, my Kala, my bride. Arisi Moiri Imsami, I plucked my myrrh, which is a type of spice, together with my spices. I ate my honeycomb with my honey. I drank my wine with my milk. Eat my beloved and drink and get drunk, or get drunk and drink my beloved. So he says, Pirish Basi Legani. So here, I don't know what the mucker here is for this, but the Alter begins. This is the Gilui Likkutei that's in Gan Eden, the Atachton, the lower Gan Eden, that happens at midnight. Hashem pleasures himself with the neshamas of tzadikim after the first half of the night, when he remembers the Chorban and and there's this crying, etc. So then he has this his comfort and that he plays with the neshamas tzadikim through the involvement of Torah. That says the Sheves Baganim, who sit in the gardens. The friends listen to your voice, listen to me, or they hear me. So he says the explanation of this, to understand what is this shashua, what is this pleasure and this comfort of the Eibishter and the involvement to the Asik of Torah, because everything's known before Hashem. So what all of a sudden is there's this comfort, and also understand why is it specifically midnight, and after he remembers the Chorban. So he brings down, it says, the other mission was put in Gan Eden to work it and to guard it, which means that the main purpose of the other mission of the creation of man was to work the Gan Eden, which means to draw godliness into Gan Eden. So Chacham say that when the Jewish people went into Galus, into Bavel, into Babylon, the Shechina goes with them. So he said, what is Shechina? Shechina, he says here, refers to the revealed worlds, which means when there's revelation of godliness to create the worlds, the higher ones and the lower ones, even in the time of Galus, the world runs normally. And as it says by Noach, that the seasons will never stop. And as the statement is, he renews every single day the actions of creation. So what's the difference? So the difference is between revelation and concealment. And time that there's no Beis HaMikdash, it doesn't stand, we don't see it, then the revealed worlds, meaning the revelation of godliness as it is in the lower world of Shechina, then it's been concealed and the face is hidden, as it says, I'll conceal my face that day. And what does it mean by Yemahu? It means it's a hidden day, a hidden time in the hidden world, which is when the darkness covers the earth. And this, as we see clearly in the way the world runs, of light and of dark and light, in this physical world, that in the times of evening it starts to get darker, and it gets darker and darker until midnight. And if at midnight and on, it starts getting lighter little by little. Same way, when it comes to the Galus of the Shechina, the time when it falls is till Chatzos, is till midnight. But then it says that it'll fall. About that time it says that it falls before his feet, which is before Chatzos, and that from midnight and on, it gets uplifted little by little, and that it gets lifted through the Anshe Maisa, the men of good deeds that get up at midnight to revolve in Torah, and in the morning it has its full standing up through Torah and the avoid of davening and all the mitzvahs of all the Jewish people that are doing this in the morning. So to understand what is this revelation and this concealment, so we see clearly, we see from our own flesh, we see godliness. Just like in a person has intellect, and he has midas, and he has machshava, intellect, emotions, and thought. So we'll say something by the Eibishter. So even though it says by the Eibishter that his thoughts are not like our thoughts, but yet it says that your thoughts are very deep, meaning Amku means it's beyond us, right? It's in a hidden way. And they're not revealed and seen in the way that the world runs. Rather, how does the world run? Specifically through the midas, through the attributes, which the first of them is chesed. It says the world is created through chesed. And these are all the utterances that were said during the 6 days of creation, through which the world was created. Let there be light, etc. And these 6 days of creation, the first day is kindness, and all these days are only 6 days. Why? Because Shabbos is a time when the worlds ascend back to their source, and then they come back and they get totally renewed the first day, as it says Yom Rishon, the first day again. In other words, these 6 days that happened the second time are the exact same ones as the first time, only they got renewed. And so it's only 6 days. And the main service of man is that it should be that the thoughts that are depth should be ma'oid. In other words, they should come down in a revealed way. And this is what it says, Makim Krasicha Hashem, I call you out from the deep. And as it says in Parshas B'Shalach, and Parshas Eschana, and Parshas Vayechi, and in many other pieces of Zohar, Parshas Achrei, and look in Rabbi's, Parshas Vayikra, about Mayim Amukim, deep waters, Mamakim from the depth. So what does it mean from the depth? Meaning from the hiddenness, which is the level of Amku Machshavai Secha, your deep thoughts, the hidden world. From there I call you like a person who's calling to his friend to go up from his house to outside, that you should be revealed. As we see it says in Tikkun Zohar, that it says, that the tzedek, it's stuck, the kindness of the righteousness of Hashem is to run the world. In other words, and how? According to the actions of people. Meaning that the way that we draw down and it's run, so to speak, it's led, the supernal midas, that the world should be run as it's run from them, is based on the actions of people down here on earth. Because the actions that we do down here, with an arousal from below, that arouses above, that tzedakah and kindness that we do, down here we arouse, so too by the Eibishter and Ein Sof Baruch Hu, that it gets revealed and it gets and it resides and it comes down into the midah of Chesed, and the same thing all the other midas, etc. So how do we get that, so to speak, godliness comes down into the midas through our actions? Okay. But he continues, it doesn't happen automatically directly. Why? Because a lot of the Ein Sof only resides and only gets revealed in the level of Chachma. And it says Bereshis bara Likim, and Hagam Yonason says B'chuchmasa, with wisdom. That's what it means, Bereshis, that the wisdom is the life force and it's the sustainment of all the midas, of all the attributes. So it says that Kulam b'Chachma is everything is made with Chachma, meaning that the level of Chachma is enclosed within the midas, within all the attributes. Yet, it's not the same Chachma as it's enclosed within the midas, and it's not revealed and seen to the way it is, and a revealed Chachma by itself as it's seen through the midas, which is much higher in essence from the midas, and therefore any revelation in the midas comes from the level of Chachma. It says Chachma Techaya. And therefore, to be able to draw down the Ein Sof Baruch Hu down here, it has to be through Torah, which is the level of Chachma and desire of Hashem, which that is the pleasure of the Eibishter. And it says, that I'll be a pleasure before Hashem, which goes on Torah, and that is the revelation of Ein Sof Baruch Hu. And this is called the level of Av, which is the Father, the source, and the beginning, the makar of the whole evolved world. That the Chachma should come down, in other words, the Ein Sof comes down into Chachma, which the Chachma gets revealed within the midas. And this is what we daven, Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu, or Slach lanu avinu, forgive us our Father, which He is a Father of mercy and forgiveness, because at this level of Father, the idea of a sin and a scar, etc., doesn't reach, as it says, even if you do kindness, in tzedakah, what are you giving to Him, etc. On the other hand, when it's not revealed and it does not get seen, all we see is the, so to speak, the midas, how He runs the world. So then the world is in a hidden way. And that's why it says in all 6 days of creation that Vayemer Elikim, the name of Hashem uses Elikim, which is the attribute of contraction. Only on Shabbos, which is the revelation of Chachma, there it says that Elikim ended, Vaychal Elikim, meaning that the level of Elikim, Kosa, expired. In other words, it became an end to it, to this level. And only after that it says, and there he adds the word of Hashem, and he added the midah of Hey, the midah of Yudke Vavke, which is the revelation of Ein Sof, and this is the idea, the midnight. And I think this has to do a little bit with the fact that there are 6 hours to the first half of the night, and 6 hours to the second half of the night. So the first 6 hours refer to the 6 hours of creation, which is the midas itself. And then in the 7th hour, we add the level of Shabbos and Torah, which is the idea of the midnight, that the Eibishter pleasures himself with the neshamas of tzadikim through their involvement in Torah, which is after he remembers the Chorban, which is the falling and the descent of the revealed worlds into an exile where it gets hidden. So that becomes his comfort that there should be this revelation of this pleasure of above, which is in the level of Chachma, the supernal Chachma, which is through the learning of Torah and the involvement in Torah, that we should draw down the light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu into Chachma, and that goes and gets enclosed within the Midas, and through that we start this ascent of the revealed world from its hiddenness, as we explained above. It says now in Oizbeis, so now this power that there is in the Jewish people, that they should be able to, and through them, to draw them light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu in Chachma, is because the Eibishter himself is much higher from the level of Chachma. And it says all were made with Chachma, and there, as we understand this, it means that even Chachma itself is like a physical thing in comparison to Hashem. And so in this he says, Arisi Miriam Sami. That means, what is these 2 spices? So myrrh is a level of myrrh, and Basi is also, they're both types of spices. And we see that a smell strengthens the brain, and it brings back, it returns the soul, and this smell of the myrrh comes from a non-kosher animal, that the blood has become congealed. The same way through the level of breaking or controlling one's evil, and me going away from all bad in a complete way, which is guarding yourself from all the loisasas, all the negative commandments, with all their details and all their different exact ways, and even the duktukim of the rabbis, that you should not transgress on any of them, and you force your bad inclination and your animal soul to not be drawn after its nature and its desire, like the example of the strengthening and the congealing of the blood of this non-kosher animal, so too you'll be strengthening yourself against your power of desire. And from this it will become a great smell above to Hashem, that it will rise to Hashem, become one within the light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, and it says that he smelled the smell of his garments. And so garments is 2 things. Then when he says this means the level of garments, which is the level of a makif, which is a surrounding light. And so therefore, there becomes this new aura. At the same time also, Gadav comes from the word Boigdav, which means those who rebel, ones who are unfaithful. It says Beged Boigdim Bagadu, that through this evil that gets transformed to good, there becomes this smell, which through that, there becomes Vayvacheyu, that Yitzchak blessed Yaakov, and a blessing of Yitin Lachem Itala Shemayim will give you from the dew of heaven, which Shemayim, which is their level of wisdom, which is Shamayim, that's the source of water, which is the source of all wetness that there is in the brain, and then the dew of heaven is the drawing down of the light in Tzad Baruch Hu that comes down into Chachma, and this is the idea that he says here in 2 terms. Number 1, Arisi Moiri, which is the smell of this myrrh, which comes from the guarding of the negative commandments. But then it's also with Sami, which is with my spices, which is a smell that comes from all other trees of good scent, which it means that you should control your evil inclination and your sitaracha through by guarding and doing all the positive commandments. That you should change your nature to learn Torah more than you naturally would do, and give tzedakah more than you naturally would do. And the same thing also doing it more excitement and fulfillment of all mitzvahs, and to take away anything that's an obstacle from inside or from outside, which through this iskafia, which going away from bad and doing good, you merit to have from this smell, this very strong smell that arises above, that through that it brings back the soul, as we have it in our body, but in the spiritual sense here, with regard to the Eibusher, it means that you should draw down the light of the, through that you draw down the light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu into wisdom that ultimately brings it down into the midas that reveals it ultimately into our revealed world and brings the revealed world of godliness into our world. So now he continues and he says, "Achalti yarim divshi." So I'll eat also my honeycomb with my honey. So here yari also comes from the word of forest, of trees of the forest. So he says this word Yari refers to the angels, which they are called the trees, the cedar trees that stand. And they're called ones who stand, as it says, the angels, the Srafim, Oimdim, they stand. And on this it says that Hashem grew all types of trees that are beautiful to be seen and very good to eat, etc., which they are the food which through them and with them it gets drawn down all sustenance to the Jewish people and to the entire world, whether it is spiritually or physically, as it says that there's no grass down here on this world, doesn't have an angel above that hits it and tells it to grow. And also in the spiritual sustenance, that there should be wisdom or understanding, etc. And even though it's Hashem who gives wisdom, yet the malachim, they're his mishluchim, his messengers, that they're the ones who bring the sustenance. Because in order to have the Eretz Baruch Hu, that it should descend and it should evolve so far, it's not possible without contractions and many contractions and many different levels and level upon level to get to the levels that we are at. And these are the levels of the angels that are in every single world, which they are the vessels for the light of the Ein Baruch Hu, that it can contract and it can enclose within them. And from there, all the souls of Jewish people receive their love and fear of Hashem. And for this, the Chachamim instituted the bracha of Yotzer Or, which is the first blessing of the Shema, by day. And there we describe how the angels, they stand in the highest of realms, and they make heard with great fear, etc. And just as, like, for example, one who comes comes before a king, that will fall upon him a great fear and a great awe when he sees so many ministers and so many honorable people are all falling on their faces before the king. The same way, this receiving of fear that we have from these angels, from these ministers, and it happens through that first blessing of Shema. Then there's another blessing. The second blessing of Shema is Avasalam, which there we see that God has a special love and a special mercy, more than the mercy of anything else, and he brings us close to his holy name, because the angels and all these chayas, they come from the spirit of Hashem, from the level of Ruach Pir, from his mouth, meaning his speech. On the other hand, the Jewish people, they come from a higher level, which is the level of thought. And it says the Jewish people, when it came up upon in the thought of God, were for a deeper level. And then you see to us that God, he leaves the angel, so to speak, and he shows his love specifically in a much more deeper way to the Jewish people. And through that, you got even a greater love to Hashem. In other words, not just an awe, but also a love, because you see his closeness, the closeness of a king. After he saw all these ministers and all these honorable figures, and they're all bowing down, great of awe. And then you see that you yourself are so close to the king. So it comes out that the Jewish people, they receive their love and fear specifically through the malachim. Whether it's the fear because they see them all bowing, or whether the next bracha because of our love that's even greater than the relationship that the malachim have. And the same way also in things of the physical world. One thing's made opposite of the other. The things that come to the other side, that there should be physical pleasure, whether it's in physical wisdom, is also through the angels. And not only the spiritual things, also the physical things. Because Abishur made one thing opposite the other. And these are the levels of impurity, which is opposite to the levels of holiness. And the person has a free choice to choose the good, and to make himself into a chariot for holiness, that he should have all of his sustenance coming from godliness through the holy angels. And that's what he says. The idea that we eat yari im divshi. What is divshi? Divshi means the honey, means all types of sweet things, which are all the fruit of the trees. Of these, in other words, because the fruit are called by their sweetness, and that is the excitement of the soul that gets drawn after this sustenance of the angels in Yotzer and in the next bracha of Ahava. And therefore they're called the fruit of the forest, because this love and fear of the Jewish people gets born and it gets drawn through these trees of the forest, which are the angels. And this is all the level of eating, because specifically on the angels it says that it's good to be eaten, which is an example of a food that gives life to the man. In other words, as we said, we brought in many mamar before, it connects our soul and our body. So even though the food does that for us, yet the man is much higher than that, and the food gets elevated through the man. In other words, that from the things that are inanimate, things that grow, things that live, through that all becomes a level of man. And that level of man is able to serve God in a much greater way than they could do independently. So they get elevated through this process. The same way the Jewish people, through that which the Jewish people receive from the level of the angels themselves get ascend through this. Because the neshamas of the Jewish people, they are able to ascend much higher through their Mesiras Nefesh. When they say Echad, and totally uniting and giving themselves over to the oneness of Hashem, which through that they become, so to speak, they become one within the body of the king, and they become one echad, they come one within one. They become echad, the echad mamish. On the other hand, the angels, on their own, they cannot have this unity. And therefore, specifically through that which we get the fruit from them, and we eat, and we get our love and fear through them, we then are able to they become one within us, and we are able to uplift them as well. And this is the idea of us being higher than the food. And that's where it says in the Maimer Kiyamar, and look in the Maimer and etc. Then he continues. So that's already two levels that we spoke about. And as you see here in the Maimer, the pasuk goes back and forth of one thing and its opposite at every level. So the first one we had was that we had the two types of spices. There was a spice from Mitzvah, a spice from Mitzvah. Now we have a Yechalti Yari Im Divshi, that we have two levels here. Then number one, we have the Ava and Yira that we get from the angels. And then there's a fruit that we have from the angels. And then we have now Shlisiyeni Im Chalavi, which this is, wine is a level of wine that makes glad Elikim. And milk, on the other hand, is like milk that lets the child grow. Through that he nurses milk, his limbs become greater. The same way, revelation of godliness from the wisdom of Hashem ultimately is supposed to nourish and grow the midas that are in the soul. And through them we add light and a greater cleaving of the soul in God. And for this we were established, the Chacham established the middle brachas of Shemona Esrei, whether it's Baruch Nadas, Baruch Tshuva, which is to add greater blessing and to draw down more godliness into the level of the midas, whether it's das, whether it's in tshuva, whether it's in forgiveness. In other words, just as God is, as it is from below to above, the same way it is above, that the idea that I drink my wine, which is the wine of the makes glad Elikim, which is a level of contraction that conceals the light of the Chachma, which is in the attributes of Hashem, that through that which you drink wine, it comes out the secret, meaning you draw it from the hidden, you draw the revelation of light, the revealed world, of godliness in the revealed world. And also is the idea of milk, which is a drawing down of godliness into the attributes, that the attributes should be in a way of maturity and greatness with the added light, which is called chalav. And this is the idea of the 12 brachas, the middle 12 brachas of Shemona Esrei, that through the bracha, which we bless Hashem, and we draw down godliness, which is the adding of the great light in God's attributes, we actually draw down that in within us also, there becomes greater knowledge, there is forgiveness, as explained before in the idea of avarachma. So now we have again these two ideas that we have. The idea Yeni and Chalavi is two levels of how we draw down godliness into the midas that we have. Now here he explained it as is above and how it is by us as well, but yet he didn't really explain here the difference between the two in avodah. But then he continues and he says, eat those who are beloved, the close ones. She says the tzadikim are called reim l'makim. They're called the lovers of the Eibishter. And says which here we speak about tzadikim, which that is through their involvement of Torah, which within it is enclosed the light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, which through that they draw down the light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu on their soul. And it says, my word that I put in your mouth, which means dvarei mamish, the word of Hashem himself. As we say, the Mishnah is a king. The Mishnah is like a king that it commands that the spirit of Hashem, which is the word of the halacha, which is being spoken through the person learning it, this law or this halacha, this is the way it should be. And so on this, the rabbi said that it should be as if it was given right now from Har Chayrev. And it says you should make it known to your children's children the day that you stood on Chayrev. In other words, that word Hashem itself, that Hashem spoke to you face to face, that is what's enclosed and what's actually dwelling upon you at the time when you're learning, and therefore you become a reya, a lover, a one that can't be separated from Hashem, as if two lovers that never could be separated, because the Torah, which is the wisdom of Hashem, which is the pleasure, and the Eden and the Tainig Elyon, and it says that he will be a pleasure. And these pleasures, which pleasure man, so it comes out that the light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu becomes equal above as it is below, that in both places you are one, mamish, without any separation. So on this it says, ichlu reim, that the lover should eat. In other words, in a way of eating, that means that it becomes one and permeates you, it's within you. As we know, food becomes blood and flesh. It becomes one within you. On the other hand, we find on the other side of this, that you should drink and get drunk, the beloved, which is that the Lord Daidim refers to the level of love of the Jewish people to God, which this love is concealed. It's not like the tzadikim. It's just a natural love that's enclosed within an animal soul and hidden there. And then at certain times it gets aroused with a love until you want to totally go out of your garments and go out of your animal soul and be cleaved to Hashem. And so in this love there's a great thirst. It's like a flame of fire. And it says, well, all those who are thirsty go to water, which water lashes out. It pushes out the fire and it quenches the thirst. And this is the idea that you should drink, which idea of drinking is that your involvement of Torah should be to quench your thirst. On the other hand, when it comes to those who are the lovers, the ones with the tzadikim, you can't say a thirst because their soul's always close and it's always connected and cleaving to Hashem. And so it's like it's totally one. Only in the lower level. So then you can't have a desire for you don't have a desire for yourself. It's only down here where you have a level of doidim, which is a love of the regular Jewish people. Then it's only for certain times. So then you could have a thirst. And on this it says, shikru, that they should drink and also get drunk, because they should also not just eat, but they have to, in other words, this is a drinking that you could drink this previous wine that we mentioned, the yain ha'mesameach, the wine that brings joy. Through this, so to speak, the growing of the midas, etc., and it brings down that which is concealed. On the other hand, above, when we're talking about the re'im, there they only have the level of oil, which is in concealment, etc. And this again, here we have these two levels. How we have this Basi Legani achaisi kala, this kala that becomes one back to Hashem. That there's a level of this through tzadikim. It's also the level it is through the regular Jew as well.